I wasn't sure where we left off. Do you have the place? Yeah.
123 line.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, let's begin. We're following King Asupati as he travels through the inner planes of consciousness. And now he's going through hell, literally. So he's descended into these lower realms that are close to the inconscient. And he's seeking the key to nature's change. And he has sought this through many different worlds, through the vital worlds, going up to the heights of the vital worlds. But always there was something missing, and always there was something dragging him down. And so he decided to turn around and go deep down for that cause of the failure of existence, of the worlds, of life. And so he went down right to the base of existence, in the inconscient, where being arises and the evolutionary impulse comes and develops from there. So just in what we were reading last time, on page 222, at the break, it says, "When nothing was save matter without soul, and a spiritless hollow was the heart of time, then life first touched the insensible abyss, awaking the stark void to hope and grief. Her pallid beam smote the unfathomed night in which God hid himself from his own view." So we see he comes down right to the base of matter, and he is there. And in the same section, a little bit further down, life also descends into this realm, seeking to find a place for its manifestation. But what happens is something cuts across that process. So towards the bottom of the page on 222, it says, "Then in a fatal and stupendous hour, something that sprang from the stark inconscient sleep, unwillingly begotten by the mute void, lifted its ominous head against the stars, overshadowing earth with its huge body of doom. It chilled the heavens with the menace of a face. A nameless power, a shadowy will arose, immense and alien to our universe. In the inconceivable purpose none can gauge, a vast non-being robed itself with shape. the boundless nescience of the unconscious depths, covered eternity with nothingness. So from out of that inconscient base, this being or non-being arises, this non-being that wears a shape and has the menace of a face. So some evil being arises out of that, which interferes with the natural evolutionary process of life. It distorts it. It creates a terrible obstacle to all its endeavor. So now let's continue reading from the bottom, near the bottom of page 223. I don't have the line number, but it begins, "Thus was the dire antagonist energy born." So we can begin there, and since you're with Ronnie, maybe Ronnie can begin. Oh, it's about 6 lines from the bottom of the page on 223. Yeah.
Thus was the dire antagonist energy born, who mimes the eternal mother's mighty shape and mocks her luminous infinity with a gray, distorted silhouette in the night. Arresting the passion of the climbing soul, she forced on life a slow and faltering pace. Her hands deflecting and retarding weight is laid on the mystic evolution's curve. The tortuous line of her deceiving mind, the gods see not and man is impotent. Oppressing the God spark within the soul, she forces back to the beast the human fall. Yet in her formidable instinctive mind, she feels the one grow in the heart of time and sees the immortal shine through the human mold. Alarmed for her rule and full of fear and rage, she prowls around each light that gleams through the dark, casting its ray from the spirit's lonely tent, hoping to enter with fierce, stealthy tread, and in the cradle slay the divine child.
Thank you. The title of this canto is "The World of Falsehood, the Mother of Evil, and the Sons of Darkness." So here we're introduced to the Mother of Evil, an antagonist energy who mimes the eternal Mother's mighty shape. She mimes, mimics, plays out disguises herself. And mocks her luminous infinity with a gray, distorted silhouette in the night. It is kind of a shadow image of the Divine Mother. And perhaps one of the main consequences of her action is that she's arresting the passion of the climbing soul. She forced on life a slow and faltering pace, her hands deflecting and retarding weight is laid on the mystic evolution's curve. So she distorts the natural curve of evolution going upward. She holds it down and she deflects it. The tortuous line of her deceiving mind. She's very deceptive and she leads astray the beings from their true path. The gods see not and man is impotent. Oppressing the God spark within the soul, she forces back to the beast the human fall. So even as humankind evolves and should go beyond the animal life and the animal instinct, she pushes down. She's always has her weight on the evolution, pushing down back to the beast, even humanity. And moreover, she senses the one growing in the heart of time, in the course of the evolution. She senses the divine arising in beings. And she's alarmed by that, because that would threaten her rule. So full of fear and rage, she prowls around each light that gleams through the dark, casting its ray from the spirit's lonely tent. Wherever there is a being who is emitting something of the Spirit's light, she goes to that being, that person, hoping to enter with fierce, stealthy tread and in the cradle slay the divine child. So that's the threat that she poses to all those who aspire towards the divine light. She especially is enraged by those beings and tries to stop their progress. So we'll continue.
Spirits normally representing the darkness. The soul
It-
is stuck in the darkness.
Yeah, it represents the soul in the darkness, yeah. As if in a kind of small individual being lighting up that being in the darkness. Helmut, would you like to continue?
Incalculable are her strength and rules. Her touch is her fascination and her death. She kills her victim with his own delight. Even God she makes a hook to drag to hell. For her, the world runs to its agony. Often the pilgrim on the eternal's road, ill-lit from clouds by the pale moon of mind, or in devious byways, wandering alone, or lost in the deserts where no path is seen, falls overpowered by her lion leap. Conquered, captive under her dreadful paws. Intoxicated by a burning breath, and amorous groan of a destroying mouth, once a companion of the sacred fire, the mortal perishes to God and light, and adversary governs heart and brain, and nature hostile to the mother force.
Thank you. Here, Sri Aurobindo elaborates on the threat that this mother of evil poses to the divine seeker and how she tricks. Incalculable are her strength and ruse. Her ruse is her subterfuge, her trickiness. Her touch is a fascination and a death. She kills her victim with his own delight. Through delight, the person is taken in by his own desires, led astray from the path, from the light. And even good she makes a hook to drag to hell. So how? The sense of virtue that people have, and that I am better than you or better than the next person. I am good. You're not. You're evil. You're low. So this sense, it strengthens the ego, this kind of vital ego in the person. For her, the world runs to its agony. Taken in by these desires, by this conceit or false pride, we run to our own suffering. And then he describes how this mother of evil can attack the being. Often the pilgrim on the Eternal's road, ill-lit from clouds by a pale moon of mind. His path is dim, the mind is active, he's not seeing clearly the path, led astray by thoughts, or in devious byways, wandering alone, or lost in deserts where no path is seen, falls overpowered by her lion leap, a conquered captive under her dreadful paws. So sometimes seekers go their own way, become ascetics, follow their own isolated path, go to the forest, the cave, go into their own subjective experiences, away from others, away from any kind of influences that might keep their feet on the ground, in a sense. She can attack in that condition. Intoxicated by a burning breath, an amorous groan of a destroying mouth. It's not exactly clear what he's referring to here. It could be lust, sexual desire, but maybe it's a more kind of symbolic image of just desire. And once a companion of the sacred fire, the mortal perishes to God and light. An adversary governs heart and brain, a nature hostile to the mother force. So it's as if then she takes over control of the person's mind and heart. She's guiding, leading that individual. No longer are they in control of themselves.
Man 166, the mortal perishes through God and light, which goes away from God and light.
Yeah. Often seekers can be led astray, even advanced sadhaks or yogis can be led astray. We've seen many examples of gurus kind of falling prey to their desires and falling off the path. Turya, you continue.
The self of life yields up its instruments to titan and demoniac agencies that aggrandize earth nature and its frame. The cowled fifth columnist is now thought's guide. His subtle defeatist murmur slays the faith, and lodged on the breast, in the breast, or whispering from outside, a lying inspiration fell, and dark, a new order substitute for the divine. A silence falls, upon the spirit's heights. From the veiled sanctuary, the god retires. Empty and cold is the chamber of the bride. The golden nimbus now is seen no more. No longer burns the white spiritual ray, and hushed forever is the secret voice. Then, by the angel of the vigil tower, a name is struck from the recording book. A flame that sung in heaven sinks quenched and mute. In ruin ends the epic of a soul. This is the tragedy of the inner death, when forfeited is the divine element, and only a mind and body live to die.
Thank you. The passage is suggesting the possession of a person by this hostile force, by this mother of evil. And it begins to govern the person's thoughts and feelings and actions. And it takes over the person, so they're no longer in control. And the soul may then retire from the body, may leave the body. And in this last line, then only a mind and body live to die. The soul has retired from the being because it's taken over by this hostile force.
Does it mean that body can be without the soul? One's soul also can enter any time, and when the evil forces take over, the soul leaves the body. That's every living being has a soul until we die. But here it means that it may go out before that moment.
Yeah, it's basically a traitor or spy, one who acts out of sympathy for an enemy. So it may not be like overtly a spy, but just somebody who also is in sympathy with the enemy.
The sleeper spy.
Yeah.
Spy also is a normal thing. They remain hidden, they lie low in the enemy territory, and once they get a signal, they start operating. Same thing.
But
when it's the war,
yeah.
the enemy will be unseen. You can come up at any moment.
But in some cases, it just may be people in sympathy with the enemy. Not that they're necessarily working for them or anything, in a direct way, but they're in sympathy with their cause, and so they work against the existing government.
Fourth column is the journalism. Fourth column is journalism.
No, I think these are the normal armed forces, I believe, or something like that. It's the
One is administration, one is the parliament. So these are three columns. And fourth column is supposed to be the journalism.
oh.
One is judiciary, one is administration, one is the ruling party. The fourth column, as I understood, was the journalism, press and all this. That's why the fifth column is came. That's why I was okay.
And even the fifth column then, you say spy?
Yeah, a spy or somebody in sympathy with the enemy.
No.
Intelligence. Intelligence. But here it's a false and a false being taking over the person's thought, deflecting it, turning it towards evil. That becomes the thought's guide. And it may work like a subtle defeatist murmur, slaying the faith. So there might even, a person may be hearing voices to do some evil deed, or that the person is no good. These kinds of things that happen in mental illness sometimes, in these hallucinations we call them, but they hear these voices whispering to them, telling them that they're no good, that, these kind of things, slaying the faith. Yeah.
Display 171 that appearances of nature and display. Distorted figures. 170 is that right? 171.
I don't have the numbers, so it's hard for me to find.
Two title and governing agencies that appearances of nature and display.
To take out of the frame, to dislodge from the frame.
Yeah, that I know.
When these powerful asuric beings possess someone, and then we can think of, like somebody like Hitler, or, they can exude a great power because that asuric being is a great power. And so the person can exhibit these kinds of, so their nature may become aggrandized and disframe. So their nature becomes disframed, disfigured.
It doesn't work in a normal, the mind doesn't work in a normal way. Human framework, it works out of that framework.
So then the soul retires, a silence falls from the spirit's height, from the veiled sanctuary, the God retires. Empty and cold is the chamber of the bride. The golden nimbus now is seen no more. So from the chamber of the soul, the light retires, it leaves. No longer burns the white spiritual ray. And hushed forever is the secret voice, the divine voice that leads us through the soul.
What is Nimbus?
Nimbus is a halo. Yeah. So this is the tragedy of the inner death. When forfeited is the divine element, and only a mind and body live to die. Shall we continue? Would you like to read?
For terrible agencies the Spirit allows, and there are subtle and enormous powers that shield themselves with the covering ignorance. Offspring of the gulfs, agents of the shadowy force, haters of light, intolerant of peace, aping to the thought, the shining friend and guide, opposing in the heart the eternal will. They feel the occult uplifting, harmonist. His wisdom's oracles are made our bonds. The doors of God they have locked with keys of creed, and shut out by the law his tireless grace. Along all nature's lines they have set their posts, and intercept the caravans of light. Wherever the gods act, they intervene. A yoke is laid upon the world's dim heart. Masked are its beats from the supernal bliss, and the closed peripheries of brilliant mind block the fine entries of celestial fire. Always the dark adventurers seem to win. Nature they fill with evil's institutes, turn into defeats the victories of truth, proclaim as falsehoods the eternal laws, and load the dice of doom with wizard lies. The world's shrines they have occupied, usurped its thrones.
Thank you. So here are other evil powers arising out of this inconscient darkness, subtle and enormous powers that shield themselves with the covering ignorance. Offspring of the gulfs, agents of the shadowy force. I suppose it's referring to this mother of evil here, this shadowy force. Haters of light, intolerant of peace. Aping to the thought, the shining friend and guide. Again, they're imitating the divine friend and guide, but opposing in the heart the eternal will. They veil the occult uplifting harmonist. I think it's interesting that Sri Aurobindo uses this term harmonist as a kind of attribute or characteristic of the divine. The important kind of quality that brings into harmony things, this quality of the divine. But these beings, they veil that, they deflect that harmony, create this kind of division and disharmony and disjointedness. And we see throughout the rest of this passage just how these beings always kind of take a opposite form or appearance of positive qualities. So his wisdom's oracles are made our bonds. So even the divine oracles, the medium or commands or revelations from God become bonds, are tied up into creed, into strict kind of laws, which also become distorted in some way and then are firmly held. The doors of God they have locked with keys of creed. So this is amplification of that. And shut out by the law, his tireless grace. Yeah, well, yeah, but even religious laws, I think he's really referring a lot to religion here, how it becomes formalized, set in a set of laws. And through doing that, they shut out this grace of the divine, this flexibility, this forgiveness, all of these things. Understanding, compassion, all of that gets shut out. You must follow these commandments from God. And if you don't, eternal damnation. I mean, these kind of things. So all along nature's lines, they have set up their posts and intercept the caravans of light. So they're always intervening. Wherever the gods act, they intervene. So a yoke is laid upon the world's dim heart, There's always this heavy hand kind of pressing downwards towards the darkness, towards the inconscient, and all upward striving for light. Masked are its beats from the supernal bliss, the heart of the world. And the closed peripheries of brilliant mind block the fine entries of celestial fire. So also even mind, higher thoughts, can close off the higher divine influences. Always the dark adventurers seem to win. Nature they fill with evil's institutes. When we look around at the main institutes in the world, how many are really focused on a higher truth? How many are distorted, turned into dark institutions? Turn into defeats the victories of truth. Proclaim as falsehoods the eternal laws. And load the dice of doom with wizard lies. The world shrines they have occupied, usurped its thrones. Wizard lies. Well, it's these falsehoods that are used to deflect people from the truth. I mean, we look in the world of politics these days, and we just see how full it is of lies and deceit now. It's like hard to find any. Yeah, I mean, it's almost. It's become so obvious and so pervasive now that we can hardly find any truth anymore.
And without the software?
And we find even in the world religions, so many are just fighting against others, other religions, other faiths. It all becomes a distorted kind of thing, championing its own particular views against others and killing in the process, going to any length. Margaret?
Scorn of the dwindling chances of the gods, they claim creation as their conquered field, and crown themselves the iron lords of time, the depths of the illusion and the mask, the artifices of nature's fall and pain, have built their altars of triumphed night in the clay temple of terrestrial life. In the vacant precincts of the sacred fire, in front of the reredos in the mystic rite, facing the dim velamen none can pierce, intones his solemn hymn, the mitred priest, invoking their dreadful presence in his breast. Attributing to them the awful name, he chants the syllables of the magic text and summons the unseen communion's act, while twixt the incense and the muttered prayer, all the fierce bale with which the world is racked is mixed in the foment chalice of men's heart and poured to them like sacramental wine. Assuming names divine, they guide and rule.
Thank you. Sri Aurobindo seems to highlight here the Christian religion in particular, because he relates some of the rituals of the Christian faith. The priest standing at the altar in front of the reredos, is that how you pronounce it? In the mystic rite. So that's like a curtain hung behind the altar, usually like a tapestry or a wall. Ornamental. So in front of that, the priest is facing the dim velamen none can pierce. So that's a little curtain there on the altar, covering the kind of box or container where the sacred chalice and things are kept on the altar. Yeah, mitred, it's a kind of a cap that like bishops wear with these kind of pointed, cleft cap. So, and then often the priest then is kind of uttering these sacred formulas in Latin, and the priest, as he's kind of mixing the chalice, the cup with the wine, performing his ritual to turn that into the blood of Christ.
What is Auroville?
Yeah, this kind of curtain, tapestry hanging behind the altar, behind the priest.
So the veneros is behind the velamen.
Yeah. Somehow this passage also kind of reminds me a little bit of something in Mother's agenda, where I don't know if she sees or Sujata sees or has this image of these priests, I think, in the Vatican, who are actually trying to attack Mother, and also kind of uttering these kind of Latin hymns or so turned against the divine, in a way, the divine light.
You said attacking the mother?
Yeah.
Can you remind us the reference? I don't remember that.
I can try.
That was before she came to India or after?
Before she came, no, she was here.
When she was here.
Yeah, she spoke about this with Satprem in her conversations.
In her lifetime, before she came to India, after she
Quite late. I mean, I don't know, maybe 80s or 90s. Or.
Anyway, since a long time, the Vatican is a Freemason.
So, you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean? There is a occult knowledge that I think they may have.
did she speak very much against Christianity when she was here?
I mean, they're both positive and negative things, because it seemed as if, I mean, she saw it as a great power in the world, and so she actually kind of wanted, I think, to use it or to guide it in some way that it could be an uplifting force in the world if used properly, but, you know, if it was turned in the right way.
I was asking specifically about the church. All negative forces, of course, are there.
She didn't look at it just as a negative thing, you know, period, but, you know, that, you know, it's like this, you know, these are institutions that have developed in spirituality originally, but they get taken over by these hostile elements. That's the difficulty. They have these, you know, positive, original forces and intentions behind them, and they may not be, you know, totally dead. They're still there, but so much they're overtaken by these hostile forces.
The church was much more powerful even than the kings in the kingdoms. They were very much after power, so try to exercise their power and whatever they could. If you don't do this, so I will probably to you something bad will happen to me, all that will be working. Please.
Yeah, he suggests that the priest here is kind of calling down these evil forces, no, and attributing them the awful name. So this must be like the name of the evil mother, or the, you know, the devil, or whatever it may be, Satan. So this definitely looks like a kind of a priest, some elements within the church that are anti-divine, that are working.
Or pro their own power.
So let's continue. Would you like to read?
Opponents of the highest, they have come out of their world of soulless thought and power to serve by enmity the cosmic scheme. Night is their refuge and strategic faith. Against the sword of flame, the luminous eye. Bastion, they live in massive forts of bloom, calm and secure in sunless privacy. No wandering ray of heaven can enter there. Armored, protected by their lethal mass, as in a studio of creative death, the giant sons of darkness sit and plan the drama of the earth, their tragic stage. All who would raise the fallen world must come under the dangerous arches of their power. For even the radiant children of the gods who darken their privilege is in dreadful right. None can reach heaven who has not passed through hell.
Thank you. Like the Vedas, like Christianity, like I think perhaps some other religions and spiritual teachings, Sri Aurobindo's view is very much this battle between powers of light and powers of darkness. So here he's really bringing out and describing in detail these powers of darkness, this world of hell from which they emerge, how they are directly hostile to any advance of life and light in the world, how they attack seekers of the divine, are especially enraged, hostile to them, and how even those who would uplift the fallen world, even Mother and Sri Aurobindo, come under the arches of their power and are attacked by them. And we saw examples of that in their lives, how they also were attacked.
What is a veil? Or the fierce veil in which the world is wrapped.
Yeah. I didn't look it up this time, but it's all the difficult, heavy things. Yeah, I don't see it.
The night is their refuge and pathetic day. I live in Western Here the nights of bars and restaurants start at 9 in the city. All over the night. And even like parties and discotheques, all goes through the night.
Yeah.
So the whole night and concentrated not on the day, daytime, but on the night.
Night is their refuge and strategic base. All the fierce bale. It's all the, oh, here it is. All the evil, woe, and suffering. That's bale. All the evil, woe, and suffering. So these beings, yes, they're protected by the darkness, by ignorance, by the inconscient. And we can't see from where their influences come. We can't easily detect them. And they're very devious in their operation. So they're quite powerful. So the drama of the earth, their tragic stage. And then the classic line, none can reach heaven who has not passed through hell. So it suggests, that all of us in a way have to face our own demons, have to face that shadowy part of existence if we want to find a true and abiding light in life. The darkness has to be transformed and not simply evaded. So we have to go through that, face these dangers and challenges and difficulties. This kind of deflecting hand on our gradual development and rise, always something pressing down, making it more difficult. Obstacles come here and there, always pressing to lead us astray.
So the lines were 248 and 249.
Which are?
For even the radiant children of the Lord. So the sentence means, for their privilege and rightful right is to darken the radiant children of the gods.
Yeah, these dark forces have the privilege and right even to darken these radiant children of God. And perhaps there's a purpose in all of that. Early in the beginning, we read, a purpose none can gauge. It's difficult to decipher exactly that purpose, but somehow these dark forces have this right and privilege, and maybe they also serve a purpose in the scheme of things. And Mother talks about this sometimes, that what's they make it insistent to find an absolute light and truth. Anything short of that, they can distort and take cover in anything less than the absolute truth. Only the divine can ultimately prevail over these forces. As long as we rely on, kind of half measures or half-hearted attempts in our own sadhana, we'll be attacked. We won't be able to succeed in the sadhana. It's only that absolute surrender to the divine where we become free. So I think that's their ultimate role and purpose. And for the world as well and its development, it also has to find some deeper truth in order to overcome these things. Shall we continue? Narayan?
This too the traveler of the worlds must dare. A warrior in the deathless dual strife, he entered into dumb, despairing night, challenging the darkness with his luminous soul. Alarming with his steps the threshold gloom, he came into a fierce and dolorous realm, peopled by souls who never had tasted bliss. Ignorant like men born blind who know not light. They could equate worst ill with highest good. Virtue was to their eyes a face to sin, and evil and misery were their natural state. A dire administration's penal code, making a grief and pain the common law, decreeing universal joylessness, had changed life into a stoic sacrament and torture into a daily festival. An act was passed to chastise happiness. Laughter and pleasure were banned as deadly sins. A questionless mind was ranked as wise content. A dull heart's silent apathy was peace. Sleep was not there, torpor was the soul rest. Death came, but neither respite gave nor end. Always the soul lived on and suffered more.
Thank you. Let's pause. So we see Asapati and perhaps Sri Aurobindo, the traveler of the worlds, pressing into this realm further and further, a warrior in the dateless dual strife, this dateless duel between light and darkness. He entered into dumb, despairing night, challenging the darkness with his luminous soul. And we saw how the darkness and how this evil force especially resents and hates those who carry the light, who are striving for the light. So alarming with his steps, the threshold gloom, he came into a fierce and dolorous realm, peopled by souls who never had tasted bliss, ignorant like men born blind, who know not light. There, these beings had never seen light or felt any divine presence. And that being the case, they could equate worst ill with highest good. They couldn't distinguish between truth and falsehood anymore. Virtue was to their eyes a face of sin, and evil and misery were their natural state. A very dark and terrible place. And then there's these kind of strict laws, a dire administration's penal code. These are the laws. Making of grief and pain the common law. Decreeing universal joylessness. Had changed life into a stoic sacrament, as if life should always be this kind of stoic joylessness, no happiness allowed. And torture into a daily festival. We see some of this in our history of culture, that torture is a daily festival where they used to, they had the gladiators was like this pastime of, fighting to the death. But also they always, they would have these public hangings of people. It would be kind of a festive kind of atmosphere when they were hanging the criminals and putting them to death, or even burning the witches, or all these kind of strict things. A questionless mind was ranked as wise content, a dull heart's silent apathy as peace. Always the soul lived on and suffered more. We continue.
Ever he deeper probed that kingdom of pain. Around him grew the terror of a world of agony followed by worse agony, and in the terror a great wicked joy, glad of one's own and others' calamity. Their thought and life were a long punishment. The breath a burden and all hope a scourge. The body a field of torment, a masked unease. Repose was a waiting between pang and pang. This was the law of things none dreamed to change. A hard, somber heart, a harsh, unsmiling mind, rejected happiness like a glowing sweet. Tranquility was a tedium and ennui. Only by suffering life grew colorful. It needed the spice of pain, the salt of tears. If one could cease to be, all would be well. Else only fierce sensations gave some zest. A fury of jealousy burning the gnawed heart. A sting of murderous spite and hate and lust. The whisper that lures to the pit and treachery stroke. Through vivid spots on the dull, aching hours.
Thank you. So as Asupati presses deeper into this darkness, there is this, agony followed worse agony, but in the terror, a great wicked joy, glad of one's own and others' calamity. So there's this kind of perverse delight in the evil and the darkness and the pain and the suffering. Again, everything is turned into its opposites in this realm. But also, it gives some, stimulates this idea of Nazi Germany at that time when this kind of world was trying in a way to descend here on earth and to establish its rule here. And it was very much in a way like this, I think, in places. If you think of, the death camps, or especially, where there was just such horrible conditions, but also just as kind of taking joy in making the people suffer. And this is very terrible perversity in the whole thing.
And I think it was very much also before in the bourgeois society, black education, how you have to treat the child as long as it cannot can only do your own father's will, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want orientation for children, even before.
Yeah, this very strict kind of way. These laws you must follow, otherwise you suffer. They talk about, Sri Aurobindo Mother talk about how this tamas, this kind of state of inertia of the consciousness, how it's especially bad because it needs like this very fierce stimuli in order to feel anything. So that's why it kind of takes these very violent kinds of forms and appearances sometimes, just because it needs this fierceness in order to shake it out of that torpor, out of its apathy. I'd like to get Suresh in here. We missed him last time too. So.
To watch the drama of simplicity, the rhythm of creatures under the halo of truth, and sorrows turning face into the night, and horror and the summoning out of fear. Where the ingredients in times heavy truth, that taste and help to enjoy its bitter tasting. Of such where stuff was made of life's long thing. Is there the threads of the dog spider's web, in which the soul of Aquarian and that this was Philippian, this was nature's rule, in a big chapter of
Iniquity.
To worship your black, less image of power. Meaning one must cross for such a slowly course. Forms like a course of living faith. Each stone was a keen edge of fruitless force, and grew with the child blood from
tortured.
Plus, that right cannot be fruit of life, dying man, shapen into a port of agony, and from his window there and remains fixed, chanting the view of Thus, curving ways, uprooted his clustered human bones, burn, return body, the womb shells, this care.
Thank you. Here we get some imagery of religion again, but also we get some imagery, I think, of the war, of this, maybe the Second World War. Mm. Mm-hmm.
I wonder what is the significance in English of the H. Line 284, a house of a heart, a harsh and smiling mind, rejected happiness, and 296, 7, the writhing of creatures under the power of doom, and sorrow tragic breathing in the night, and horror and hammering heart. I don't know.
Well, she's
The
just,
significance of the aging English.
well, it's not that it has a particular significance in a mental way, I think, but what does it elicit? Yeah, what does it elicit in you? Pretty negative, most of the terms. Huh? Horror, hammering heart. Hard-hearted.
What is chanting used?
Chanting Te Deum. Te Deum is a Catholic glorifying God song.
It's a hymn, yeah, a hymn. The God we praise. I don't know if that's the only one, but that's kind of a typical one, I guess. These kind of chants. But it's kind of a horrible image. You see these beings in the window, these kind of dark beings chanting these things while outside what is happening. You know, these bombs are bursting. And, it's kind of a horrible thing. This kind of mix of religion and destruction. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, we stop there for today. Maybe no music, huh? So we just have a minute or two of silence.
Where did we stop?
At the end of the page. Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.